Hi there. I'm Kat Parnell, and I'm with Birch Bark Editing, and I'm so glad that you've joined us this evening, a snowy, slushy evening. I don't know where you are, but I'm sure that you're dealing with the same sort of weather difficulties that all of us are dealing with. We have a fabulous event this evening, and we're so glad that all of you are here, but allow me to provide um, a few words about Birch Bark Editing. My partner, Max C. Jane Fraser, and I started Birch Bark a few years ago. I think it was before the pandemic, but maybe in the beginning of the pandemic. One of the things that we came up with was this idea of having Zoom meetings where we met and conversed with artists in our field, whether that field was art or literature. And so to that end, we have a really good evening for you that is actually a lovely merging of poetry and art. Birch Bark Editing, um, we are we're a volunteer organization except for clients that we have, and we always welcome clients. So if you are of a mind to donate, that would be great. Um, Otherwise, not a big deal. We are here for you. We also sponsor a literary magazine called Microlit Almanac. We publish reviews and flash pieces, whether those flash pieces are fiction, nonfiction, or poetry. We will be open for submissions on March 1st. And so, again, we welcome submissions. Send us your work. We want to see it. Without further ado, I want to let you know that we have a great evening for you. We have three really amazing people. Elaine Fletcher Chapman, Tracy Rice Weber, and Christi Harris. Elaine will be moderating this event. So I'll give you a quick overview of how fabulous Elaine is. She is the author of 2 volumes of poems, Reservoir and Hunger for Salt, which Hunger for Salt was published by St. Julian, and a letterpress chapbook, Double Solitude, published by Green River Press. She worked on staff at the Bennington Writing Seminars for 18 years. She founded the Writers Studio, where she teaches poetry, nonfiction, and other classes on keeping a journal and yoga nidra. For the last 40 years, she's worked as a therapist. She's a certified I Rest yoga nidra teacher, and her poems have been published in Hoot, Cloud Bank, Poetry Pacific, 8 Poems, Rabbit Oak, the Tishman Review, the Eco Theo Review, Portland Review. You get the idea. She is well published and rightfully so. Find her trailers and for books and poetry videos on her website, which is ElaineFletcherChapman.com. And she can also be found on Instagram at Elaine.FletcherChapman. Without further ado, I'll turn this over to Elaine. Welcome, Elaine.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank definitely Birch Bark Editing for inviting us for this uh, opportunity to have this amazing discussion today. So, and I wanted to acknowledge everybody who's come. I see some familiar names, and so it's wonderful to see you here. So thanks for attending. Really appreciate it. So first I wanted to introduce Tracy Rice Weber. And we are here to talk about, part of it is about Tracy's book, which just came out in 2023. So Tracy Rice Weber is the author of Tools and Ornaments, published by St. Julian's Press. And she's been playing to an audience, real and imagined, since she was a young child. She's a graduate of Longwood College. She taught literature, drama, and creative writing for 35 years, the public school system, before putting down her colored chalk and returning to her own work. And in 2021, Tracy graduated with a Master's of Fine Arts degree from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. Because students are her life force, she returned to ODU to teach Introduction to Literature and Introduction to Creative Writing. She currently teaches first and second year writing seminars at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia. Her first collection, All That Keeps Me, was published in 2021 by Finishing Line Press. And Tracy Harris earned her Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree at Missouri State in Springfield, Missouri. The year following graduation, she pursued an MFA in painting and printmaking at the Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, Rhode Island. She graduated in 1995. Her major series of works since graduation have always focused on personal and societal issues with an underlying reliance on technical skill while using formal arrangements of color, pattern, and shape. Her recent artwork has explored memory and the role of women within the prescribed societal structures of the culture and family. She's an associate professor of studio art within the Department of Fine Art and Art History at Christopher Newport University in Newport News, Virginia. She teaches foundation and advanced studio courses in painting and drawing. So I am so excited about this conversation that I'm hoping to have. And I want to just invite, once I get things started, I want to invite Christi, and I don't know how this works technologically, but I want to invite Christi and Tracy to just talk back and forth. So I really want this to be a casual conversation. The reason I came up with this idea is because I think something magical has happened here, truly. And I know I can be emphatic, but I'm really not exaggerating here. So Tracy, of course, wrote her book, and it was accepted to be published. And of course, what do we need? We need cover art. So Tracy knew Christi, and she contacted her to because she also used Tracy used Christi's artwork on her first book. So what's really exciting, what happened is that Christi worked on the cover art, which was designed for the book. And then she became, I don't know, can I say obsessed with Tracy's poems and just kept going. That's how she describes it. She just kept going. So it's unusual. We often read where, poems are being influenced by art, but how many times do we really hear of a visual artist being so influenced by a poet and their poems? So I'm just fascinated with this idea. So I'm gonna ask Tracy to read some of her poems, and I don't know how many she's going to read, but and then what we're going to do is show the artwork that coincides, or it's going to flow. You're going to see it on your screen. Some of the art that Christi created. So, and then after that, we'll have some conversation. So, Tracy, welcome. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuting myself right this very moment. Here I am. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to read the first 6 of the 15 that make up the core of the book, the spine of the book, the anchor of the book, Tools and Ornaments, and it is a heroic sonic crown, 15 Lego interlocking sonnets that it reveals a narrative that is reflects my relationship with my father, and investigates some of the reasons why things happened the way they did with him. So I'll begin, and I think we've got Christi's art that will go along with it, and so we should have that up probably. Is that up? Is the art up? Are the slides up? Great, great, okay. All right, and there's my book, and there's Elaine's book, and now I'm ready for slide 2. You ready for slide 2?
I'm sure it's coming.
Okay. All right, I'll begin. The level, the coping saw, the claw hammer. 1. My father found himself traveling, a buyer in retail, circling home when he could to truer callings. Handyman, dreamer of impossible projects, of basements he tried to dig by hand, always filling with rain. Reason enough to spend weekends in the damp, smelling garage. Maytag whirring, he traced tools, then painted their silhouettes, inventory on pegboard where they hung. A practical matter, to see what was missing by the shadows they left. Memorizing those shapes, I learned the value of negative space. We're on 3 now. I learned the value of negative space, the work done bit by bit, the comfort, puzzling out repairs, favors for neighbors, gifts for friends, what you might need, a solid table, a sturdy mantle. He taught me how a man may be remembered by what his hands made. He also taught me sometimes what's missing serves mercy's greater cause. Slide 4. Sometimes what's missing serves a greater cause, mercy. Waxing and waning, the sound of driveway gravel crackled against his wheels. In the background of my childhood, the crayon blue mountains. In the foreground, a chain link fence. The slender mimosa, its pink fireworks and easy confetti, its crooked finger pointing to another side where grass grew soft and thick as shag carpet. 5. I learned about safety there, how to climb out. After supper, some nights he'd perform jump rope cowboy tricks for neighbor kids, then pull us around that field, hasty thrill, chain of children running serpentine, laughing, blur of green and blue, drunk with speed and chaos. 6. And blue, drunk with speed and chaos, he took on beastly features. Mother called them spells, those blue-black nights he left and didn't come home. I learned to protect her from his narrow eyes, his jaw pulled taut. Days later, appearing in the shape of an apology, malleable, like Play-Doh after it spent time unbothered in the can. Reborn that way, he could build a treehouse between loblollies or a covered wagon atop our radio flyer. 7. He could pedal me on the handlebars of my banana bike uphill all the way to Howard Johnson's in the middle of a Monday to choose from 28 flavors. He could be a hero whenever he could be. Then work clothes pressed, even his sweat smelled clean. 8. Work clothes pressed, his sweat smelled clean on a Sunday when the blue law kept him mostly home. Oxford cloth yard shirt tucked into his jeans, work belt matching polished work shoes. Pressed together, his lips stretched into a smile. He waved at neighbors. Hello! I want to sit there on the cool brick steps again, hugging my knees to watch him broadcast from an upturned fist grass seed to earth. Diligence, this work to make life appear green on the outside, the front yard pristine. 9. When I was 6, he took a shotgun out of the closet and locked himself in the bedroom. Mother knelt in the hall, her head against the door, hand conjuring a lesser moon. Jack, no. We depended on night's darkness to bear fireflies. 10. We depended on night's darkness to bear fireflies. Maybe he just cut the grass, summer perfume. Maybe he sat with Mother at the picnic table by the soft maple. Maybe they shared a cigarette, spoke kindly when the heat gave up, pressing the otherwhere of days. My father was proud of me when I spit watermelon seeds the farthest. He was proud of me for knowing tools by name, for teaching, for reaching into my vinyl daisy purse and asking Phillips or Flathead. I liked being near him then, watchful bird near a project in motion. The even nature of his planting, building, fixing. He used what he had to find brief order. With the back of a flat shovel, edged the walk, leveled rows of arrow wood along the cracked foundation of our house. Before he asked, I offered bypass pruners for a nice clean cut. There is where I try to keep him, tending a garden's possibilities, between the green tip and the root. 11. Slide 11. Between the green tip and the root, any point of a circle is its start, trying to find its way by a current I could not name or change. In the framed black and white photograph, divine shapes, sense their sorrowful voices and silences. Memory was the room I entered down a long corridor, and the cold, bleak lack to come. What did I know? What did I know of your ice-hearted calling, of the significance of this, trying to get saved? I was asleep while you were dying, floating toward nightfall out of otherwhere. Thanks. That last poem, the last sonnet, I don't know if you're able to follow where one sonnet began and one ended, but the last sonnet was a cento, so you probably recognize some of the lines. They were all scarfed from other poems from other poets. So that is the first 6.
So thank you, Tracy, so much. And Christi, I think all of you can see why I have been just wowed by not only the poems, but the artwork that was produced.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. So I think we'll start with Tracy, and just Tracy, maybe you can help us understand. Christi started with the cover of the book and the artwork for the book. And how did you discover Christi's work, and what made you ask her to make your cover, and why? And we'll just start right there.
Well, I've been a fan of Christi's work for all right, Graydon is 28 minus 2, so that's 26 years now. Christi was a neighbor of ours when we lived in a little duplex in Hilton Village, and so we sat on the step and watched the boys ride bikes up and down the sidewalk together, and she came over and played my clavinova, had a hankering to play piano because Christi is multi-talented. And so I got a chance to, I liked her first. She was my buddy. And then I was impressed that, she was this for real artist. And so I've loved her work for some time. I've always threatened to buy a piece, but, don't have it like that. Yeah, I've always threatened, but the coinage just wasn't there. So, anyway, years passed, things changed for her. We moved, and she went to teach at a different university in the Midwest, and we kept in touch via Christmas cards and that kind of thing. And then when she moved back in the area, you know, we got back in touch. So I've been, I mean, I got a chance to go into her studio. I've looked at her work. I guess I first started, I poked around online and I found her work. Well, I think she told me to look for it online. And the portfolio was just, it was just really impressive. What I love about Christi's work is that it is so deeply storied. It's, you know, I mean, it's got this visual appeal, of course, as you want art to, you know, to draw you in because of the color and the form and all that stuff. But it truly, I mean, it's like reading a novel, looking at any of her work, not just the work for this that she has done for the book. It's just, it's deeply, it's a social statement. It's just multifaceted and fascinating. And so, so when I asked her permission, and I really didn't expect her to say yes, so I presented it in a way that was going to be, you know, apologetic with the chapbook. I said, Christi, I really, you know, would you, I can't pay you anything. Would you, for free, would you let me use one of your pictures? And she said, yeah, sure, you know, in that Christi casual, of course, way. And so that, you know, there were several that I loved, but I chose the one with the couple on the bed because sex sells. And but it didn't sell the chapbook, but you know, that's what I hear, sex sells. And so, but it's also very appropriate to the chapbook collection. All that keeps me. But so then when my thesis manuscript really got accepted for publication, I went back to Christi and I said, well, you know, may I use another work? And she was on board to, I was amazed to find that she was willing to work something up for me. And then before I knew it, she had been creating, you know, pieces to go with each and every one of the 15 sonnets. And then before I knew that, she had created multiple pieces. I mean, she was just continuing to work on them so that I couldn't, and she'd send me a text and I couldn't keep up with it, but they moved me in such tremendous ways. I mean, sometimes when she'd send me a text of a collage, a recent collage, it would bring me to tears because it captured the emotional, the narrative and the emotional aspect of so many of the poems. So did I answer the question?
You did, you
Oh, yeah.
did.
And then
And so Christi, thank you, Tracy. That cues us into how that happened. And Christi, can you speak to what happened to you when, you know, you did the first one and then, oh my gosh, the second, the third, and especially the Crown of Sonnets at first. So just can you talk to us about, you know, what was it about Tracy's work, that Tracy's poems that just drew you in and just compelled you forward?
Well, first to say, I didn't just like make that one cover and it was the perfect one the first time. I was making like 8 or 9 at the same time. And that was more like the 5th or 6th one.
yeah,
And
I got to choose.
yeah. So, I mean, I had to kind of tune in for a while and kind of see what images kind of came together. And the thing that I don't know, sometimes you just kind of get caught up in stuff, but I think probably the main thing was just the connection to the work, even though our situations in terms of our fathers were very different. There were some similarities that I was trying to understand and kind of empathize with, trying to, and this is something I don't do very often, trying to see things in my art from a male point of view, or not that I don't don't empathize in general, but anyway, my art is usually all women, like the collages are all women. And the main reason I feel like I do that is because I understand and can feel like I can represent something about women that maybe I wouldn't for men. So, but in this one case, since I had the prompt and I kept going back to it, and it was so full of images that were very easy to kind of find pictures that related to. So it was, part of it was just, you end up with this table full of pictures and then you start putting them together to see what happens. And it's very intuitive and spontaneous, and it's very fast most of the time. So it's not like making a painting like what's behind me that takes months and months. Something I can do in very, very quickly sometimes. So anyway, yeah, I kept going. I felt like there was more. And then the more images I found, then, it's like there's more images to be made from all these images on my table that I collected to represent the imagery that I saw in the poems. So I kind of just had to cover up everything for now, and I probably should move on. But they're still all there. All that stuff is still on my table.
Good.
So it was, and they are just, I have to say, every time I see them, I'm just blown away. So it was a little bit of a departure for you from the feminine, because I think I read that usually your images are about women and inclusive of women and women's stories. And so this was a departure. So what was that like to move into the story and find all the male? How was that for you to find all the male images and move? What kind of interesting responses did it cause for you, or did it cause some? Just how was that for you?
I'll try to come up with something. Like, I have piles of images that are already cut out, and none of them are of men. So I have like piles and piles of them. So I had to specifically like go back through all my old magazines and tear out pictures of men that would work, and the backgrounds and all that stuff. I already lost track of the question.
Well, you know what, Christi, the thing, I would love, the nostalgia of using the very old magazines, and these aren't just images that, are of men present day, but they are, they smack of nostalgia. And I think that's part of the charm, is they capture that time period when I was a little girl in the 1960s, and some of the stereotypical, the delineation between man's work and women's work, and that whole.
Yeah, because it's very, very, very pronounced in these old magazines. It's like the idea of a woman and the idea of a man and what that should be, or what that should look like. And I don't know, I just found myself trying to, for the first time, really try to imagine what it'd be like to be a man and have those particular set of expectations on you, that you provide for your family, that you provide a stable income, that that you have these certain roles, and they're very different from the women's, obviously.
And hiding the shame of mental illness as well,
Right.
That's the big
secrets and absence.
Yeah. So that leaves me, well, before I want to move on to my next thought, Tracy, what was it like for you to experience the knowledge that Christi, you had asked for cover, and that she had created so many, what was that like?
That's easy for me to say, because and I say this to her every time, and she's probably sick of having me say this to her, but I'm just really sorry for the vomit fest I'm about to say to you, but I'm just so amazed that I know somebody as talented as this person is, as prolific. I think her work is really important. I think it speaks volumes. I could, and I mean, I have gotten ideas. In fact, I changed something in one of the poems because an inclusion that she created in one of the collages, and I went back and changed a line or two to fit the story that she was telling, so that my story could, you know, fit the story that she was uncovering. Because this, you know, collage, for the layperson, a collage, you think, oh, you know, you get pretty pictures and you just lay them. But Christie's, if you take a look at this, if you go to her portfolio at ChristiLynneHarris.com, right, that you'll see that, I mean, she has them interacting. These pictures are interacting in very meaningful ways. And even the imagery in the background ties in with various ideas that I'm presenting in the poetry. She's got a lot of, you know, the purple moon. There's a lot of moon symbolism there, and she's, you know, of course, the tools, and just anyway.
Great. So Tracy, I wanted to ask you another question about the heroic chronic sound. The heroic chronic. Oh,
The heroic sonic crown.
Yeah, you know
Say
what I'm
that
saying. You know,
10
heroic
times, really.
chronic sound of yeah, sonnets. Anyway, today I was saying
The
crown
day
of,
drinking has got to you, hadn't it?
no, I was saying the crown of tears, and then I was saying the
No,
crown of
it was
sorrows.
crown of thorns. No, it's not that.
So I just wanted to know a few minutes about how did you come to create the crown of sonnets? And because it's quite,
Yeah.
and it is you know, it does, I mean, I think personally, I feel like it's apart because it has these interlocking sonnets
Well,
that are amazing. And so how
I'll
did you
tell you,
come,
I did it the absolute most difficult, backwards way I could possibly come up with it. After doing it, and I mean, I was into it. I was like wading into the murky murk. And I thought, why in God's name have I tackled this project in such a way? First of all, the whole reason I tackled the project was because my thesis advisor said, why don't you and I said, oh, you think I can do that? Yes, I do. I think you could do that. So I thought, oh, well, if she thinks I can do it, maybe I can. But I started
and you
with,
did.
yeah. Man, I mean, I don't know. Thank God that's all I had to think about for 3 years while I was working on this degree. But anyway, I started with, Elaine, I started with a poem I wrote. You know, my manuscript, my thesis manuscript is all new stuff, except for, well, I mean, and this heroic sonic crown is also new, but it started with a poem I wrote in the writer's studio uh, about, you know, 20 years ago, and it got rave review for the 4 winners. But you know, and that's where it stayed. And so I came back when I decided I wanted to do the sonic crown, and I kind of had an idea of what direction I wanted to go in. I took that one poem and I cracked it and got all the bits out on the table. And so for several of these sonnets, I used pieces and parts of that original poem that I wrote, you know, decades ago, and then expanded on them into other pieces. But I'm telling you, you know, the putting the lines together and make them make sense was, I'm sure I did it the worst way possible. The place I first ran into the heroic sonic crown, I didn't even know what a heroic sonic crown was, and I was teaching creative writing, so I guess that's shame on me. But one of the projects that my high school students did was they went to the library and picked out a book of poems, and the librarian was really cool about letting me order books, current books. And anyway, so this one student came to me and said, can I use this book? It's shorter than what you want. And I said, sure. And it was a wreath for Emmett Till. And I looked through, and I mean, it was staggering. Of course, the story itself is staggering. I should know the poet's name, but my Teflon brain just lost it. But a wreath for Emmett Till, and it was also illustrated, by the way. And so it was just so soulful and moving and meticulous and precise. And I mean, the language was just so exacting. And so anyway, I sort of recalled that inspiration, after the fact also to do this, because once I realized what I was doing and I put two and two together, I went back and found that book and, also studied that to help me get a grip.
And I proposed this question to Christi because I didn't want her to be surprised by it, but I know that Christi, relied on Tracy's really strong images, and Tracy is an artist herself and a visual artist, and her use of color in her poems and her story and the voice of the speaker in the poems. And so, Christi, I just, if you can answer this, because I'm curious about it. How did the form, this, this crown of sonnets, did it influence you in any way? And if it did, how?
I got you, Christi.
Yeah, and I pre-warned her about this.
Yeah,
so,
she did.
Yeah, so because I'm interested in the unconscious too in the production of art, and I just wondered if the form, the rhythm, the line lengths, the number of lines, did that inform you in any way in your art?
I don't think in a really obvious way, but if I think about this set of collages compared to what I usually make,
Right.
they were much more dense and much more like puzzle pieces kind of pieced together. Like I would take an image that would end up being mostly a background, but I kind of cut little parts of it out and put new pieces in, or piece it together with another piece, which is different than what I usually do.
Interesting.
That's the main thing I think that's different. Also, they're all images, all images, not much paint or stitching or anything like that, or negative space. It's just all like crammed in there.
Wow.
And I think that has to do with the way the poem felt.
Yes.
But not so much about like how many lines there were or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The art.
Well, you just led me to my next question, which is really something about both of your work that's I've thought of. So at the beginning of Tracy's book, there's a line that says, "I learned about the value of negative space," and she's talking about the tools up on the wall and then painting them. Then when they were gone, there was the outline. And then I understand from just knowing you and reading about your work, and that you use negative space. So I thought that was just another connection between the two of you, this whole idea of negative space. So could both of you talk about that for a minute?
Well, I would say first that the notion of negative space, of course, is more than a visual idea, and it refers to this absence, whenever referring to when her father was on his business trips and things like that, and away, and then also away when he would go through what did your mom call them? Go through spells when he would be in one of his spells, kind of like negative space, because he's there but not there. And that's one of the lines I really loved about when he had you look at the moon landing and how a man could be here and not here. So I think the negative space, I mean, it definitely triggered visual things and my practical kind of knowledge about how to make artwork, but it was about more than that for me.
Right, right.
And of course, she meant it in more ways than one in the poem.
Right. Tracy, did you want to say something about?
Well, I was just going to say, I get the feeling. I mean, a couple of times I've done this little mini reading of a piece and part of the whole 15, and I'm rethinking that. I wish I could go back and pick like the last 6 instead of the first 6, because that gets into more story and more, you know, I don't know, the introduction. Maybe it wasn't the right choice, but yeah, the negative space. What's not being said is as powerful. And I mean, we're talking about this and all things, right, that are going on this planet, the things that we don't do and the things that we don't say, and the people we don't reach out to. And I mean, all of that, you know, the guilt through omission, that makes a big impact. And I mean, in like art, as far as like decorating a space or sometime, or, you know, on the page too. And I keep telling myself I'm going to do this in future poems, you know, claiming real estate and giving your audience a big chunk of space, being bold enough to say this space intentionally left blank, you know, because this is where you breathe. This is where you pause. This is where you inhale and exhale. And here is the space where you are bringing something of your own to what has just been said, or what. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
So I'm knowing that we're going to open up for questions, but before we do that, is there anything else either one of you would like to say about the writing of the poems, the making of the visual art, and how this has brought you guys together and intersected your lives? You know, did you want to say anything about, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I would like to volunteer something on that note, which is, until, honestly, I never read the chapbook. My bad.
It's okay.
But until this manuscript was handed to me, I had never read any of Tracy's poetry, because until just recently, she kept it pretty tight and I never saw any of it. And the only experience that I had of her poetry was I was doing this thing, like trying to make her write and trying to like get a phone call into her when she was really busy. I'd call her, I'm like, okay, 5-minute poem. And I'd start with the line, we go back and forth and like start making a poem. And who knows, I don't know if any of them have anything good in them, but that was the only exposure I had to her poetry before this. So like really like doing a deep dive, making these collages and going back to certain phrases over and over again. And the imagery, like, I feel like made me know Tracy a lot better. And that's something we had never, we never talked about her father much during our friendship. So I felt closer because we had shared that too. So.
Yeah. Tracy, what do you?
Well, you know, we did collaborate back when, you know, 25 years ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, that was our first collaboration, and that was just kind of a sanity. Let's, you know, have some fun. The boys were little, and I was pregnant with number 3, and you know, and I had begun an MFA program at ODU way back then, and I just couldn't cut the mustard with working full time and also taking classes. And so this was, I mean, Christi kind of put a balm on my my hurts, you know, for not being able to get to it. And you know, thank God for places like the Writer's Studio too, that allowed me to come in and out and just, you know, on my own terms. And and show up with a poem or not, but just to stay in that presence was so important. And I mean, I'm so grateful for that. So, yeah. I would like to say this. I would very much like to, I mean, Christy and I are thinking about maybe doing, this book, of course, it just has, she's got all this great artwork. Really sort of like to pursue publication of her art and my work in, just that heroic sonic crown separate from the rest of the book, and see what we come up with. I think it could be a really cool thing, just with all that art and or the image. I think the image would sell it.
Oh my gosh, I
I
think
think
it
the
would be
poem would sell it.
yeah, I think both. I think the combination, and
Lord.
because the combination is beyond our imaginations. So really, thank you so much. We're gonna open this up to questions now from.
Right. Elaine, Tracy, Christy, thank you so much. I mean, the idea of collaboration, I'm not on the screen right now because we want to see the three of you. This is Kat speaking, but the idea of balm, this is something that we as writers do. We provide a balm, writers and artists, but at the same time as we're providing that healing power, we are also exposing the wound. And that's critically important to what we do. And you address the idea of negative space, which is also, your comments about negative space are very, very valuable. And, I would like to go back and look at this recording and make sure that I can print this out and put it above my computer so I can look at it periodically. So thank you for that. We have three questions that sort of came in a row. And they're really good questions about the idea of the heroic crown of sonnets. I said that properly. And by the way, if you if you're not familiar,
Chronic.
yeah,
It's chronic.
I know.
Chronic.
That's what
Okay,
I said.
chronic.
Chronic crown.
I know. If
Tracy
you
Rice
don't,
Weber. Yeah.
if you don't know Meg
Sorry.
Carney's work, Meg Carney is it's Kearney. Her heroic crown sonnets are just stupendous. So do take a look at those. But
Yeah.
backing into the questions that we have here, there are three in a row. One is, what made you choose that form, the heroic crown of sonnet form for these poems? That's start one. Now wait, we've got more here. They all they all fit together. Now, once we had them, how did that influence what Christy was doing in terms of the art? So that's part two, and this could take a moment to answer. And then part three, of course, is looking at how this all came together and whether you had any pushback from the press on the artwork for the cover.
Okay.
That's a three-part thing. And I fully expect Elaine to jump in here because the artwork for her two books, Hunger for Salt and Reservoir, the artwork for that is really stupendous. And in the same way that the artwork for Tracy's book is just, it's beautiful. It's illuminating. It's the sort of thing that I love to look at before I read the poetry. And then it brings the poetry to life.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that it conveys in that way. Let's see. The was for no pushback on the art, because Ron Starbuck of St. Julian Press is just a dreamboat to work with, and he was very receptive to whatever. I mean, he wanted to make sure all of his poets are pleased with what the book turns out to be, because it's our baby, and so he's very supportive. So there was no pushback as far as the I guess it is kind of different in that there's a lot of action, lots of stuff going on in it, which could be distracting, but we worked with that. Why the heroic sonic crown? By the way, I'm on 7%. Sorry, you guys. I know.
You.
Are you? Yeah. I'm about to.
Yeah, my
Okay,
thing
so
comes
I
in.
might. Yeah, I'm calling out to the universe to bring me. But so the reason I did that, I'm drawn to the sonnet, but know what? I'd like to tell you I'm just that kind of hardworking poet that I like a challenge, but that is just not the case. I was assigned it. I was assigned it, and I would not have ever done it had somebody I admired not said to me. And that's how I've gotten anything done in my whole life, is when somebody I have respect and a heart connection with tells me I ought to do something. Elaine has done that, Christy's done that. Then I just kind of feel like, oh, well, I guess it's my job to do that. Gee whiz. So I did it because I was told to do it.
Good job.
That's it. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Wish it could be something more snazzy, but it's not.
So that leaves the middle part,
What was the other
how did it
question?
influence me?
Yeah.
Which I think I kind of answered earlier, just that
Yeah.
it, the imagery and the puzzle piece, the fitting together of things. That's the main thing that influenced me, and the story.
And I think if I can say too, Christi often works with words. She had an installation recently, which was
Oh
so
God,
stunning.
yeah.
I didn't get to see it. I just saw pictures of it. But she had, I'll just tell the story real quick. She bought, I guess, at a yard sale or something, some letters. And 10 years later, she opens them up. I mean, you could tell the story better than me.
Yeah.
But, and they were all letters of bereavement. And then she took some of the sentences, and she stitched them, those words, on cloth, and then hung them
In the
up.
same handwriting that was used in
In the same
On
handwriting.
handkerchiefs.
On
On
handkerchiefs. So old lady
vintage
handkerchiefs.
handkerchiefs.
And so Tracy, Christi works with words in her, not just images, but words, and that was an amazing installation. I'm sure you must have pictures on your website of it.
I do not yet.
Oh, okay.
I have them. It's one of those things I haven't done. So I'll write myself a note to work on that this weekend in case anyone cares.
Right,
And
right.
see, Lacrimose, and I don't have Tracy's images up because I wasn't sure which ones were good.
And finding cover art and the design of a cover, I mean, that's a whole field. I think one of my favorite book designer, Tree Swenson, has designed some of my favorite books. And so when I was doing Hunger for Salt, I used her as a model, and then had a photograph on the cover. And then the Reservoir book, Alike Barnstone, it's a watercolor, and I loved it so much. But also Ron Starbuck loved it, and we loved it so much that we put the whole. He really designed that, because he took just a slice of the whole, and but it was so beautiful that we decided to put the whole painting, watercolor, on the back of the cover, because it was so beautiful. And so
My artist was not up. That was one of her stipulations. She was all about being free of charge and all that, but she did not want me to cut or alter any piece. And so I honored. I understand that.
Yeah. And I don't think Alike, she was okay with that. She was okay. I'm sure he must have asked her. But Reservoir and Hunger for Salt are also published by St. Julian Press, and Ron Starbuck he does want the poet to be happy, so he really works to do that. So thanks for sharing book covers.
Right. Well, I just
art.
Jump in here. This is Kat, and I'm going to throw myself up here on screen if I can ever figure out how to do that. Add to my Spotlight. Hi. So I just want to say again that it is so important to have a collaborative relationship between the writer, the artist, and the press. And it's highly unusual to have that. And so Christi and Elaine, or Elaine and Tracy are very fortunate to have found St. Julian in that regard. And Tracy is very, very fortunate to have found someone whose work is as sublime and potent as Christie's work is. I mean, I looked through, we had the slideshow ahead of time, and I looked through some of those and I thought, wow, you know, they really do illustrate the poem, bring the poem to life and to death in ways that you just, as a reader, don't fully appreciate until you have it right in front of you. So once again, you know, the collaboration is really important. Elaine mentioned Tree Swenson, who did the cover work over at Copper Canyon. Isn't that right, Elaine?
Yeah,
Right. It's
Copper Canyon
Press.
and Gray
Right.
Wolf, I think.
Beautiful, beautiful covers. And then we also have just one other suggestion for those of you who are looking for cover art. Lily Poetry Review, they might have some ideas. That's a suggestion that came in from someone who is with us this evening as we have this really very fruitful conversation. And as I said, this is Birch Bark's last Zoom event. And I'm so honored to be saying goodbye to our Zoom series, our InConversation series with Elaine Fletcher Chapman, a dear friend, Tracy Rice Weber, a new friend, and Christi Harris, a new friend as well. So all of you who are here this evening, join me in thanking these three artists for joining us this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you,
can I-
Kat.
Thank
Can
you.
I just say one more thing?
Yes, go.
I wanted to thank again Birch Bark Editing, and I really wanted to thank for being so open, because I think this was a little bit different. And I wanted to really thank Christi and Tracy for being so vulnerable. They didn't really know what I was going to ask or how I was going to ask it, and I felt like they were just such open to the idea. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank everybody for coming, because
Yes.
it's wonderful
you.
to see people and be able to share, I think, the book and Christi's art.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Kat.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. This was a true
Part-
sheltery evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.